Welcome to the 5th grade Writing and Humanities Unit 2 virtual preview. In this video, we will briefly be reviewing your resources and where to find them on Blackboard, then discussing a short rundown of the Unit 2 at a glance for Writing and Humanities, the unit assessments for each, and then discussing office hours too. To quickly review your materials, please be aware that on Blackboard.com you have access to your course vision and supporting documents, your scopes and sequences, your common assessments and their answer keys, and all of the materials that I provide for you in the Humanities section. Today we'll be doing an overview of the Unit at a Glance located here in the Unit at a Glance and Unit Previews folder. Hopefully you've already seen the Unit at a Glances for Unit 2. In addition to that, please be aware that in that same folder you'll find the rubrics and guidelines as well as the full assessments for Unit 2, both Writing and Humanities. Let's take a look at the Writing Unit at a Glance. To begin planning, it's important to look at your scope and sequence. Here on the first page of the scope and sequence, you can look at the PYP overview to make sure you understand the connections you can make to your unit and the cross-curricular connections to other subjects. On the next page, you can see the different TEKs and the way that they align vertically with 4th and 6th grade, as well as important vocabulary to add to your word wall, utilize a vocabulary station, or add to your other assignments. Next comes a list of all of our readiness and supporting TEKs that are scheduled to be covered within this 6-week time span. Beyond that, if you continue in the scope and sequence, you'll see detailed breakdowns of each TEK and the way in which they will be tested on aligned assessments. If you're ever struggling with the expectations and guidelines for the TEKs, this is one of the places to search for answers. In the actual Unit at a Glance, you can see the suggested breakdown of TEKs, lessons, and objectives to cover throughout the unit. Our first set of TEKs and our major focus in this unit is to involve the organizing and planning drafts in relation to expository paragraphs and essays instead of the personal narratives that we covered in Unit 1. Our first two suggested lessons are to go over the plans for organizing responses and locating important information in the text. You'll want to review the writing structures for expository responses that they covered in the Writing Star. Strategies like argument, evidence, analysis, or topic, quote, describe, or info, or topic, 3 supporting details, conclusion, are all important structures that you can practice with your class before trying to have them begin planning responses. The grammar focus for these first lessons is covering subordinating conjunctions. You'll find options for teaching the skill in the resources section on Blackboard, but I recommend adding it to your requirements for daily writing after introduction. Adding a simple instruction like use a subordinating conjunction like we practiced into your daily writing test is an easy way to get the skill locked in with your scholars after a lesson. Next up, we tackle actually forming the responses with TEKs 5.18c and 5.15b. I've planned 3 lessons of practicing writing expository responses with simple formats first, starting with the whole group filling in of sentence stems and building towards free response on paragraph length topics. On the side, you'll find several options for writing integrated responses in other subjects. I recommend either borrowing some of my suggestions and implementing them in stations, or working with your team to plan portions of their assessments as writing topics. After they've had the opportunity to respond on multiple different prompts, move on to creating an essay length response. You can utilize a Unit 2 assessment posted on Blackboard, which is aligned to the STAR and CAs, or you could create your own prompt, possibly aligned to your own novel or reading for the unit. After they've had several class periods to work on actually creating the essays, it's back to revision and editing, with 2 lessons planned for each. Several strategies are listed to help your scholars deal with the very, very difficult issue of editing their own work and separating what revision is from what editing is. This is also where our second grammar focus is, complete subjects and complete predicates, as well as the proper punctuation of quotations. These mini lessons can be inserted where you have time and practiced in stations as well as in the actual writing assessments as you utilize them. Especially if you're integrating it with other subjects, an expository essay can make great use of a quotation from a supporting text. In the resources section on Blackboard, you'll find a video entitled Austin's Butterfly, which is a really great thing to show your kids to help them understand how constructive criticism is helpful and how to properly accept constructive criticism in an encouraging way. Briefly, I'd like to mention the writing assessment for Unit 2. It follows a similar format to CA2 and does not require any background content knowledge. It utilizes a STAR-aligned rubric, but you can also help your kids by going to the Blackboard Resources section and giving them a kid-friendly rubric to help them along. Moving on to Humanities, we are working chronologically with the colonial period. We're post-colonization, but we're pre-revolution. To tie into our PYP unit, it's important to look at the scope and sequence and notice that the PYP connections are very much the same as the ones you saw in the writing scope and sequence. For Humanities, we're trying to make sure that our students understand the technological differences as they developed between the time period in question and the modern day. Take time in your lessons to note that, and you'll also improve their empathy for the people that you teach them about. On my campus, this is a heavy science unit, but it really depends on your central idea and lines of inquiry to truly inform the way that you integrate the PYP into your planning. If you need help with this, please feel free to reach out for more info. The next page of the scope and sequence details our progression of readiness seeks once again, and we are focusing mainly on 5.14a, which deals with the governmental systems of the early colonial period. Our supporting teaks also deal with how people adapt their environment to suit their needs, the major industries of colonial America, and identifying examples of representative government in the colonies. As with our writing scope and sequence, the next pages of our humanities scope and sequence will deal with the individual teak breakdowns and the ways they are tested, sample questions, and in general, they're a great resource for you to stop by if you don't have a full understanding of a teak that you're teaching in this unit. If we look at the suggested plan for the unit, we fold most of these teaks into the same lessons to better utilize our time. We can discuss both the governments of the early colonies while identifying representative governments among them. We can cover major industries in the colonies and identify the ways that people adapt their environments to suit their needs all at the same time. The best way to utilize all of these is to discuss the historical context of the colonies and the paths that they developed along. Our first 7 lessons will cover the processes by which these colonies were formed, their governmental systems, their important industries, and historical fun facts, at a rate that is suggested to be about 2 colonies per lesson. Throughout these lessons, scholars can take notes in several different ways, although I recommend something fun for them to create like an anchor chart or a flipbook, and continuously compare the various economies, governments, and histories as they move forward in time through the facts about these colonies. You can utilize small exit tickets at the end of these lessons, or if you're lacking time, utilize these colonies as easy compare and contrast prompts for expository writing. After having time to compare the various colonies and their major industries and systems of governments, students can classify them as one of the 3 regions of the colonies. Hopefully your students can make connections between the major industries as you go through them individually, but if not, they can make those connections when you discuss the differing geographies of the 3 regions, New England, Middle, and Southern colonies, and then relate back to the way people adapt their environment to suit their needs in describing the ways the different colonial industries worked, likely in response to the available resources in that particular region. After students have sufficient knowledge of all these topics, you have a few lessons, and I anticipate some of your flex days, to utilize a Unit 2 assessment and complete the Colonies project, which your students will present. You can also include a writing piece to integrate these subjects together. More details, including the rubric, sized colony maps, and student instructions, are available on Blackboard. You can see 13 examples in the artifact section of Blackboard. You may remember this project from Collaboration Day kickoff. Our next office hours will be Tuesday the 19th at 4 to 5, and in them we will have a focused agenda dealing with planning our days on the calendar, discussing tools and ideas for integrating with your other subjects, how to create meaningful writing assessments for your team to utilize, and different strategies for getting in writing practice in the limited amount of time that you have to teach. Please plan on attending. If you can't, please let me know why so that I can adjust and improve our scheduling or our topics. That's it for the virtual unit preview. Please remember that there is much more to these unit glances or the scope and sequences that I don't cover in extreme detail. They are so full of helpful information, and to get more ideas about different lesson formats or the ways that you can integrate, be sure to come to office hours or check out AMLs 1 through 5. If you're struggling with a particular lesson or need help with utilizing resources effectively, please remember to reach out and let me know. Once again, I'm Justin Hassan, and this has been your virtual unit preview. I'll see you at Collab Day 1.